Captain Sarah Chen stared at the warning lights flashing across her control panel. The research ship Persistence shook violently as sparks flew from the main engine console. Her crew of 12 scientists and engineers worked frantically to stop whatever was going wrong with their experimental faster-than-light drive. "Rodriguez, what's happening back there?" Sarah called to her chief engineer over the noise. "The quantum field is unstable, Captain," Maria Rodriguez shouted back from the engine room. "The new drive system is overloading. I can't shut it down." Dr. James Okafor, the ship's medical officer, grabbed onto his chair as another violent shake threw him sideways. "How bad is it?" "Very bad," Rodriguez replied. "We're about to make an uncontrolled jump to somewhere. I have no idea where." Sarah felt her stomach drop. They were supposed to be testing their new engine safely in human space, far from any planets or space stations. An uncontrolled jump could send them anywhere in the galaxy, or worse, it could tear their ship apart. "Everyone hold on," Sarah announced. "Emergency jump in 10 seconds. The ship's lights went out. For a moment, everything was completely silent and dark. Then reality seemed to twist around them. Sarah felt like she was being stretched and compressed at the same time. The sensation lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like hours. When the lights came back on, Sarah looked at her screens. They were no longer in the familiar star system where they had started their test. Strange stars surrounded them, arranged in patterns she had never seen before. "Where are we?" asked Dr. Lin Wei, their computer specialist. Before anyone could answer, new lights appeared on the sensors, ships, lots of them, and they were huge. "Captain," said Thompson, their security chief, "we have company." Sarah looked at the main screen. 12 massive vessels surrounded the Persistence. Each ship was at least 10 times larger than their small research vessel. The alien ships looked like they were made of crystal and metal, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. They were beautiful, but also clearly powerful. "Are they scanning us?" Sarah asked. "Yes," Dr. Lin confirmed. "Very detailed scans. They're learning everything about our ship." A new voice suddenly filled the bridge. It spoke directly into their minds, not through their ears. The words felt strange and formal. "Unknown vessel, you have entered the territory of the hegemony of Zephyria. Prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in destruction." Sarah took a deep breath. This was not how she had planned to spend her day. "Open a communication channel," she told Dr. Lin. "I think they're already listening to everything we say," Dr. Lin replied. "Good," Sarah said loudly. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human research vessel Persistence. We're explorers from Earth. We had an accident with our engine and ended up here by mistake. We don't want any trouble." There was a long pause. Then the voice spoke again. "Humans, we have no record of this species. You will be examined." One of the crystal ships moved closer to the Persistence. A beam of light connected the two vessels. Sarah felt a strange tingling sensation, and suddenly, 3 alien beings appeared on her bridge. The aliens were tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished metal. Their eyes were large and completely black. They wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. The one in front spoke, though its mouth didn't move. "I am Supreme Coordinator Velthar of the Zephyrian Fleet. You will surrender your vessel and submit to processing." Sarah looked at the alien leader. She had expected to be more frightened, but mostly she felt curious. Processing? What kind of processing? All new species must be cataloged and assigned their place in the hegemony. We rule over 847 different species across 12,000 star systems. You will be species number 848. "That's nice," Sarah said politely. "Would you like some coffee? We just made a fresh pot." The alien leader stopped talking. His large black eyes seemed to grow even larger. "Coffee? It's a drink we make from beans. Very popular on Earth. Rodriguez, could you bring our guests some coffee?" Rodriguez looked confused but nodded. She disappeared into the ship's small kitchen and returned with 3 steaming cups. "Here you go," Sarah said, offering the cups to the aliens. "Careful, it's hot." Supreme Coordinator Velthar stared at the cup like it might explode. "You offer us Gifts? It's just coffee, Sarah said. We're friendly people. Dr. Okafor here is our doctor. Dr. Lin works with computers. Rodriguez keeps our engines running. Thompson handles security, but he's more like a crossing guard than a soldier. The aliens looked at each other. They seemed to be having a silent conversation. Finally, Velthar spoke again. Your behavior is unexpected. Most species beg for mercy when they first encounter the hegemony. Why would we do that? Rodriguez asked. She had returned from the engine room, wiping grease off her hands. You seem nice enough. A bit formal, maybe, but nice. Dr. Lin was studying the aliens with scientific interest. Your transportation technology is fascinating. How do you manage the quantum entanglement over such distances? And that mental communication system must require incredible processing power. You understand our technology? One of the other aliens asked. Some of it, Dr. Lin said. The basics, anyway. We use quantum tunneling for our faster-than-light travel, but your method looks more elegant. Less efficient, probably, but elegant. Velthar made a sound that might have been surprise. Less efficient? Well, yes, Rodriguez said, joining the conversation. You're using a lot of energy to maintain those quantum fields. Our tunnel drives use about 1/10 the power for the same speed. But your ships are much prettier than ours. Dr. Okafor had been quietly scanning the aliens with his medical equipment. Your cellular structure is remarkable. Very advanced, healing capabilities. Though I notice some inefficiencies in your neural pathways. Do you have problems with memory storage? The three aliens stood very still for a long moment. Then Velthar spoke slowly. You are not impressed by our technology? Oh, we're impressed, Sarah said quickly. It's very advanced. We're just curious about how it works. We're scientists, that's what we do. And you're not afraid of us? Sarah thought about that. Should we be? You haven't threatened us or anything. You've been very polite. We told you that resistance would result in destruction. Well, yes, but we're not resisting anything. We're just talking. This is nice. We don't get to meet new people very often. Velthar turned to his companions. They had another silent conversation, longer this time. When they turned back to the humans, their expressions had changed. You will come with us to Zephyria Prime, Velthar announced. The Emperor will want to meet you personally. That sounds wonderful, Sarah said. Should we follow you, or do you want to give us directions? Our navigation system might not be compatible with yours. We will escort you, Velthar said carefully. As the aliens prepared to leave, Dr. Lin called out, Oh, Supreme Coordinator? You might want to adjust the frequency of your scanning beams. They're interfering with our communication system. Velthar stopped. You can detect our scanning beams? Of course, they're pretty obvious. Here, let me show you how to modify them so they don't cause interference. Dr. Lin pulled up a holographic display showing wave patterns and frequencies. The alien leader stared at the display for a long time. Then he and his companions disappeared in another beam of light. As the alien ships began moving toward a distant star, Sarah sat back in her captain's chair. Well, that was interesting. Think they're friendly? Thompson asked. They seem nice enough, Sarah replied. A bit surprised by us, but nice. This should be an interesting trip. The persistence followed. The crystal ships toward whatever adventure waited at Zephyria Prime. The journey to Zephyria Prime took 3 days. During that time, the humans learned much about the hegemony from their escorts. The Zephyrians had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years. They controlled thousands of star systems and had conquered hundreds of different alien species. Captain Sarah Chen listened to these stories with polite interest. That must have been a lot of work, she said to Supreme Coordinator Velthar during one of their conversations. It was necessary, Velthar replied. Order must be maintained. The strong must guide the weak. Sarah said thoughtfully. We tried that approach on Earth a few times. It never worked out very well for us. When they finally arrived at Zephyria Prime, Sarah had to admit the planet was impressive. It hung in space like a jewel, surrounded by hundreds of space stations and artificial structures. The planet itself had been completely transformed. Floating cities drifted through the atmosphere like clouds. Massive towers reached up from the surface, connected by bridges of pure energy. Most impressive of all was the star itself. It was completely enclosed in a giant metal sphere, covered with solar panels and collection arrays. The entire star had been turned into a power source for the Empire. "Wow," said Dr. Lin Wei, staring at the view screen. "That's quite an engineering project. How long did it take to build?" 800 years, Velthar said proudly. "It powers our entire home system. That's dedication," Rodriguez commented. "Though I have to ask, why didn't you just use micro-singularities? They're much more efficient energy sources, and you wouldn't have had to dismantle all those planets for building materials." Velthar's expression became confused. "Micro-singularities?" "Small black holes," Dr. Okafor explained helpfully. "We use them to power our larger space stations. Much more energy per unit of mass, and they're self-contained, so no risk of system-wide power failures." "You have mastered black holes?" Velthar asked slowly. "Well, the small ones," Rodriguez said. "The big ones are still too dangerous to work with. But we've been using micro-singularities for about 200 years now. Very reliable." The Supreme Coordinator made some notes on a device that looked like a crystal tablet. Sarah noticed he had been making a lot of notes during their conversations. Their ship was guided to a landing platform on one of the floating cities. As they disembarked, Sarah saw that the city was filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. There were beings that looked like walking plants, others that resembled giant insects, and some that seemed to be made entirely of energy. All of them wore symbols that marked them as subjects of the hegemony. "So many different species," Dr. Okafor observed. "How do you manage the cultural differences?" "All species adopt Zephyrian culture," Velthar explained. "It eliminates conflict." "But don't you lose a lot of valuable knowledge that way?" Dr. Lin asked. "Different cultures often develop unique solutions to problems. We've found that diversity usually leads to better outcomes." "The Zephyrian way is superior," Velthar said firmly, but he made another note on his tablet. They were escorted through the city by a group of Zephyrian guards. The buildings were beautiful, made of materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Transportation was provided by platforms that floated through the air without any visible means of propulsion. "Anti-gravity?" Rodriguez asked, examining the platform they rode on. "Gravitational manipulation," one of the guards confirmed. "Our most advanced technology." "Neat," Rodriguez said. "We mostly use maglev systems ourselves. More energy efficient and less likely to cause space-time distortions. But this is prettier." The guard stared at her. "Space-time distortions?" "Well, yes," Rodriguez said. "When you manipulate gravity fields this extensively, you create small ripples in space-time. It's probably not dangerous at this level, but you might want to monitor for temporal anomalies just to be safe." More notes were made on crystal tablets. Their destination was the Imperial Palace, a massive structure that floated at the center of the city. As they approached, Sarah could see that the building itself seemed to be alive. The walls pulsed with energy, and patterns of light moved across the surfaces like living creatures. "Impressive," Thompson said. "Good defensive capabilities, I imagine." "The palace can defend itself against any attack," Velthar said proudly. "It has weapons that can destroy planets." "That seems like overkill for a palace," Thompson replied. "But I suppose it depends on your security needs. On Earth, we found that good intelligence and community policing work better than overwhelming firepower, less collateral damage." Inside the palace, they were led through corridors that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. The walls showed scenes from across the galaxy, displaying the vastness of the Zephyrian Empire. Thousands of worlds, millions of species, all under Zephyrian control. "The Emperor will see you now," Velthar announced as they approached a massive door made of what looked like crystallized starlight. The throne room was designed to overwhelm visitors. It was enormous, with a ceiling that seemed to stretch up into infinity. The walls could apparently manipulate reality itself, creating illusions and displays that challenged the mind. Strange lights danced in the air, and sounds came from everywhere and nowhere. At the center of it all sat Emperor Zixthal. He was larger than the other Zephyrians, with skin that gleamed like polished gold. His robes seemed to be made of captured galaxies swirling with stars and nebulae. When he spoke, his voice echoed from every surface. "So," the Emperor said, "these are the humans." Sarah stepped forward and bowed politely. "Your Majesty, I'm Captain Sarah Chen. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." The Emperor gestured, and the room around them changed. Suddenly, they were standing in the middle of a space battle, with laser beams flying overhead and explosions all around them. The illusion was so realistic that Sarah could feel the heat from the energy weapons. "Behold the power of the Zephyrian fleet," the Emperor declared. "This is what happens to those who oppose us." Sarah watched the battle with interest. "Very realistic holography," she said. "The physics look mostly accurate, though your energy weapons seem to be losing a lot of power to atmospheric scattering. You might want to adjust the frequency." The illusion suddenly stopped. The Emperor stared at Sarah. "You are not afraid?" "It's very impressive," Sarah said honestly. "We have similar holographic systems on Earth for entertainment and training. Though ours are usually smaller scale, this is much more elaborate." "Entertainment?" the Emperor asked. "Holographic movies, games, that sort of thing," Dr. Lin explained. "Very popular with children. Adults too, actually. We have whole districts on Mars dedicated to holographic entertainment." Emperor Zixthal was quiet for a long moment. Then he gestured again, and the room filled with images of advanced technology. Machines that could create matter from energy, computers that could think faster than entire civilizations, weapons that could unmake reality itself. "These are the achievements of the Zephyrian Empire," he announced. "Technologies beyond the comprehension of lesser species." Dr. Lin studied the displays with the expression of someone reading a textbook. "The matter converter is interesting, though you're losing a lot of energy in the quantum transition phase. And that AI system. It's impressive, but the neural network architecture seems overly complex. You could probably achieve the same processing power with a much simpler design." "Simpler?" the Emperor asked. "Well, yes," Dr. Lin said. "Complexity isn't always better in computer design. Sometimes a more elegant solution is more efficient. We learned that when we were developing our own AI systems. Our latest models use quantum neural networks that are much smaller but much faster than these designs." The Emperor looked at his advisors. They looked back at him. Sarah got the impression that this meeting was not going the way they had expected. "Tell me about your world," the Emperor said finally. "This. Earth." "It's a nice planet," Sarah said. "One large continent, several smaller ones, lots of water, about 8 billion people. We've been exploring space for about 600 years now, though we only developed faster-than-light travel about 300 years ago. And your technology?" "We do our best," Sarah said modestly. "We've had to be pretty innovative. Earth has a lot of natural disasters, so we learned to build things that could survive almost anything. And since we've been alone in the galaxy until now, we had to figure everything out ourselves." "Alone?" Velthar asked. "You have encountered no other species?" "Just you," Rodriguez said. "We were starting to think we were the only intelligent life in the galaxy. It's nice to know we're not alone." The throne room was very quiet for a long time. Sarah began to wonder if they had said something wrong. Finally, the Emperor spoke again. "You will be our guests for a time," he announced. "We wish to learn more about your people." "That sounds wonderful," Sarah said. "We'd love to learn more about you too. This has been fascinating so far." As they were escorted to their quarters, Sarah heard Velthar whispering urgently to other Zephyrian officials. She couldn't understand the words, but the tone sounded worried. Their rooms were luxurious beyond anything they had experienced. Each suite was larger than their entire ship, with technology that responded to their thoughts and desires. Food appeared whenever they were hungry, and the walls could display any environment they could imagine. The next morning brought an unexpected invitation. Supreme Coordinator Velthar arrived at their quarters with what appeared to be excitement, though it was hard to tell with Zephyrian facial expressions. The Emperor has decided to test your capabilities, he announced. This is a great honor. Most species are simply cataloged and assigned their roles. You will have the chance to prove your worth. Captain Sarah Chen exchanged glances with her crew. What kind of tests? Technological demonstrations, intellectual challenges, combat simulations, the standard assessments we use to determine a species' proper place in the hegemony. That sounds interesting, Sarah said carefully. Though I should mention that we're scientists and explorers, not warriors. All species must be tested in all areas, Velthar replied. It is the Zephyrian way. They were escorted to a massive complex filled with laboratories, testing chambers, and simulation rooms. Hundreds of aliens worked in the facility, all wearing the symbols of the hegemony. Sarah noticed that most of them seemed to be operating equipment rather than designing it. Who builds your technology? Dr. Linway asked as they walked through the corridors. The Central Design Authority creates all new technologies, Velthar explained. Each conquered species contributes their knowledge to the collective database. The authority combines the best elements to create superior Zephyrian designs. Interesting approach, Rodriguez said. We tried something similar on Earth with international technology sharing programs. It worked well for basic research, but we found that innovation really requires independent thinking teams. The first test was in the computer laboratory. Dr. Lin was presented with what the Zephyrians claimed was their most advanced quantum computer, a massive crystalline structure that hummed with energy. This system can process the thoughts of entire planets, the chief technician boasted. It operates beyond the comprehension of most organic minds. Dr. Lin studied the system for a few minutes, then pulled out her tablet and connected it to the quantum computer. May I? You think your primitive device can interface with our technology? The technician asked with what might have been amusement. Universal. Quantum protocols, Dr. Lin said, already typing on her tablet. We use them for all our computer systems. Makes it easier to share data between different species. Well, theoretically, you're our first test case. Her tablet connected immediately. Within minutes, she was running diagnostic programs on the Zephyrian computer. Her expression grew more and more puzzled as she worked. This is strange, she muttered. Your quantum entanglement protocols are all tangled up. You're losing at least 30% of your processing power to quantum decoherence. And these neural pathway simulations, they're running in circles. What are you doing? The technician demanded. Just cleaning up your code a little, Dr. Lin said. Your system is trying to do too many things at once. If you separate the consciousness simulation from the data processing and run them on parallel quantum streams instead of trying to force them through the same entanglement matrix. There. The massive computer suddenly became noticeably quieter. The lights that had been flashing chaotically across its surface settled into smooth, steady patterns. Your system is now running about 40% faster, Dr. Lin announced, and it's using less energy. You might want to review your other quantum computers. They probably have similar inefficiencies. The technician stared at his control panels. What did you? Basic quantum optimization, Dr. Lin said. We learned these techniques in school. The first rule of quantum computing is that entanglement works best when it's not fighting itself. Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Dr. James Okafor was being shown the Zephyrian healing systems. The medical officer, a being that looked like a walking tree made of silver, was very proud of their cellular regeneration technology. We have conquered death itself, the medical officer declared. Our regeneration matrix can restore any biological damage, heal any disease, reverse any aging process. Dr. Okafor examined the regeneration chamber with interest. It was an impressive piece of equipment, filled with energy fields and quantum scanners. But as he studied the readouts, his expression became concerned. This is remarkable technology, he said diplomatically. But I notice you're working against the natural cellular rhythms instead of with them. That's probably why your patients experience so much pain during regeneration. Pain is irrelevant, the medical officer replied. Results matter. Well, yes, but unnecessary pain is inefficient, Dr. Okafor said. He pulled up a holographic display on his own medical scanner. Look, if you adjust the quantum frequency to match the cellular resonance patterns and time the regeneration pulses to work with the natural healing cycles instead of overriding them, you get much better results. He made some adjustments to the chamber's settings. Try it now. The medical officer activated the system on a test subject, a small alien creature with a damaged limb. Instead of the usual screaming and thrashing, the creature lay peacefully as its limb regrew perfectly. How? The medical officer whispered. Biology 101, Dr. Okafor explained. Bodies want to heal themselves. If you help them instead of forcing them, they do a better job. In the Military Simulation Center, Security Chief Thompson was facing a different kind of challenge. The Zephyrian military commander, an imposing being covered in natural armor, had challenged the humans to combat simulations. Your species must prove its warrior capabilities, the commander announced. We will test your combat skills against our greatest champions. Thompson looked uncomfortable. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not really a warrior. I'm more of a safety officer. I make sure people don't get hurt. All species have warriors, the commander insisted. You will fight, or be marked as cowards. Well, if you insist, Thompson said reluctantly. But instead of fighting, could I look at your tactical systems? I'm curious about how you coordinate large-scale operations. Before the commander could object, Thompson was already studying the military displays. His background as a safety instructor had taught him to spot potential problems quickly, and the Zephyrian military systems had a lot of problems. Wow, Thompson said after a few minutes. Your defensive grid has some serious vulnerabilities. Look here, and especially here. A small strike force could disable your entire planetary defense system just by hitting these 17 weak points. Impossible, the commander declared. Our defenses are perfect. Thompson pulled up a tactical simulation on the displays. Watch this. If an attacking force comes in from this angle, using these flight patterns and targets these specific nodes, see? Your whole system goes down. The simulation played out exactly as Thompson predicted. The Zephyrian defenses collapsed completely under a relatively small attack. And here, Thompson continued, your communications network has a single point, a failure. If someone cuts this relay, none of your ships can talk to each other. You might want to add some redundant communication channels. The military commander stared at the tactical displays. In 10 minutes, this safety officer had identified flaws that Zephyrian military engineers had missed for centuries. How do you know these things? The commander asked. Safety training, Thompson explained. You learn to look for everything that could go wrong. Same skills, different application. By the end of the day, word of the humans' performance was spreading throughout the facility. Dr. Lin had optimized 3 more computer systems. Dr. Okafor had improved their medical technology and helped design better food synthesis systems. Rodriguez had shown them how to increase the efficiency of their power plants by 40%. Thompson had identified critical security flaws in everything from their transportation system to their communication networks. That evening, Supreme Coordinator Velthar met privately with Emperor Zixthul. The conversation was not going well. They are not what they appear to be, Velthar reported. Their technology is more advanced than ours in every area we have tested. That is impossible, the Emperor replied. They are a young species. They control only a few dozen star systems. They have been spacefaring for less than 1,000 years. Nevertheless, their knowledge exceeds ours, and they share it freely, as if these advances are common knowledge among their people. Emperor Zixthul was quiet for a long time. The Zephyrian Empire had been built on a simple principle. They were superior to all other species. Their technology was the most advanced. Their military was the strongest. Their civilization was the most sophisticated. It was the foundation of their entire society. Continue the tests, he ordered finally. There must be areas where we surpass them. But the tests continued to produce the same results. In every field of science and technology, the humans demonstrated knowledge that surpassed Zephyrian achievements. They did so casually, almost apologetically, as if they were embarrassed to point out the obvious flaws in Zephyrian systems. The breaking point came on the third day when Rodriguez was shown the Zephyrian faster-than-light communication system. It was the Empire's greatest achievement, allowing instant communication across thousands of light-years. "This is our most advanced technology," the chief communications engineer announced proudly. "No other species has achieved anything comparable." Rodriguez studied the system for a few minutes. "It's very impressive," she said. "Though I notice you're using quantum entanglement tunnels. We used similar systems about 50 years ago, but we had to abandon them." "Abandon them? Why?" "They tend to create temporal paradoxes," Rodriguez explained. "When you're sending information faster than light across galactic distances, you sometimes send messages back in time. We had several situations where effect preceded cause. Very confusing for everyone involved." You found flaws in faster-than-light communication?" "Well, yes. That's why we developed quantum tunnel networks instead. They're much more stable and they don't mess with causality. Here, let me show you the specifications." Rodriguez pulled up detailed technical drawings on her tablet. The Zephyrian engineer stared at the designs with growing horror. This is impossible," he whispered. "How can a young species have developed such advanced technologies?" "Practice, mostly," Rodriguez said. "When you're all alone in the galaxy, you have to figure things out for yourself. No one else to copy from." That night, Emperor Zixthul called an emergency meeting of his highest advisors. The question that had been growing for days finally had to be addressed. If humans were so technologically advanced, why had they never conquered anyone? Why were they still confined to a small area of space? And most importantly, what did this mean for the Zephyrian Empire? The answers to these questions would change everything. Emperor Zixthul sat alone in his private chambers, staring at reports that made no sense. For 3 days, his best scientists and engineers had tested the humans in every possible way. The results were always the same. These newcomers possessed technology and knowledge that surpassed the Zephyrian Empire in every field. It was impossible. It had to be impossible. Yet the evidence was overwhelming. A soft chime announced the arrival of Supreme Coordinator Velthar. He entered the chamber carrying a crystal data tablet filled with information. "Your Majesty," Velthar said, bowing deeply. "I have completed the investigation you requested. And what have you discovered about these humans?" Velthar hesitated. "The truth is disturbing. Their home system contains only 12 planets, 3 of which are inhabited. Their total population is approximately 8 billion individuals. They control 23 star systems, all within a small region of space." "That confirms what we already knew," the Emperor said impatiently. "A minor species barely worthy of our attention." "Yes, Your Majesty. But there is more. They have never conquered another species. In fact, they have never encountered another intelligent species until they met us. They developed all of their technology independently." Emperor Zixthul felt a cold sensation in what humans might call his stomach. "All of it?" "All of it. Their faster-than-light travel, their quantum computers, their medical technology, their energy systems, everything. They started from nothing and built it all themselves." The Emperor was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. "Summon the human ambassador. I wish to speak with him privately." An hour later, Ambassador Michael Santos arrived at the Emperor's private chambers. He was a middle-aged human with gray hair and kind eyes, wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. He looked around the elaborate room with polite interest. "Your Majesty," Santos said, bowing respectfully. "Thank you for seeing me. Sit," the Emperor commanded, gesturing to a chair that materialized from the floor. "We need to have an honest conversation." Santos sat down comfortably. "Of course. What would you like to discuss?" "Your species," the Emperor said bluntly. "We have been monitoring your communications. We know the truth about humanity's size and scope. You are a small young species with limited territory. Yet your technology surpasses ours in every measurable way. I want to know how this is possible." Santos considered the question carefully. "I suppose it comes down to necessity," he said finally. "Earth is not an easy planet to live on." "Explain." "Well, for most of our history we faced constant threats. Climate changes, natural disasters, disease, resource shortages, wars among ourselves. We had to become very good at solving problems quickly, or we would have gone extinct." The Emperor leaned forward. "And this led to advanced technology?" "In a way. When your survival depends on innovation, you innovate fast. We couldn't afford to be inefficient. Every system had to work perfectly or people died. Every design had to be as good as possible, or it would fail when we needed it most." Santos stood up and began walking around the room, his hands moving. As he spoke, "Take our faster-than-light drive, for example. We spent 200 years developing it because we knew that if we got it wrong, our exploration ships would be lost forever. So we made sure we understood every aspect of quantum mechanics before we tried to build the drive. But surely you could have conquered other species and taken their technology," the Emperor suggested. Santos looked confused. "Why would we do that? We never met any other species until now. We were completely alone." "Alone," the Emperor repeated softly. "Yes, for 6 centuries of space exploration, we never found any sign of intelligent life. We started to think we might be the only thinking beings in the galaxy. It was rather lonely, actually." The Emperor felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. "So you developed everything from first principles?" "We had to. There was no one to teach us or to copy from. Every discovery, every invention, every advance, we had to figure it out ourselves. It made us very careful about understanding how things actually work, rather than just knowing how to use them." Dr. Lin Wei appeared in the doorway. "Ambassador Santos? I'm sorry to interrupt, but the Emperor wanted to speak with our science team as well." "Of course," the Emperor said. "Please join us." Dr. Lin entered, followed by Rodriguez, Dr. Okafor, and Thompson. They arranged themselves in chairs that appeared automatically. "I was just explaining to His Majesty about humanity's development," Santos said to his colleagues. "Ah," Dr. Lin said, understanding immediately. "The isolation factor." "What is this isolation factor?" the Emperor asked. Dr. Lin pulled out her tablet and displayed a holographic image of human space. "This is our territory," she said, indicating a small cluster of stars. "For 600 years we explored thousands of star systems. We found planets with life, even complex life, but no intelligence, no technology, no one to talk to. It forced us to be very thorough," Rodriguez added. "When you're the only ones working on a problem, you can't take shortcuts. You have to understand everything completely." Dr. Okafor nodded. "In medicine, for example, we had to develop treatments for diseases that only affected humans, in environments that no other species had ever experienced. We couldn't ask anyone for help. But this seems inefficient," the Emperor protested. "Surely it would be faster to conquer other species and learn from their discoveries." The humans looked at each other. Thompson spoke first. "That assumes the other species had better solutions than what we could develop ourselves. And conquest is very expensive," Rodriguez said. "All those military ships and occupation forces, that's resources that could be used for research and development instead. Plus, forced technology transfer doesn't work very well," Dr. Lin explained. "If you just take someone else's technology without understanding how they developed it, you can't improve it or adapt it to new situations. You end up stuck with whatever they had." Santos leaned forward. "Your Majesty, may I ask you something? How much of the Zephyrian Empire's technology did you actually develop yourselves?" The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. "We integrate the best technologies from conquered species." "I see. And how often do you improve on those technologies after integration?" Another long pause. "The Central Design Authority makes modifications as needed." "But do you actually understand how the technologies work?" Dr. Lin asked gently. "Or do you just know how to use them?" The question hung in the air like a weapon. The Emperor realized with growing horror that he didn't know the answer. "We have the most advanced technology in the galaxy," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You have the most collected technology in the galaxy," Rodriguez corrected kindly. "That's different. You've built an impressive library of other people's innovations. But when was the last time your empire invented something completely new?" The Emperor thought about that question. And thought. And thought. He could not remember the last time the Zephyrian Empire had created a fundamentally new technology, rather than just combining existing ones. "Your empire is 3,000 years old," Dr. Okafor observed. "In that time, what new scientific principles have you discovered? What new mathematical theories have you developed? What new understanding of physics have you achieved?" "We have conquered 847 species," the Emperor said weakly. "Yes, and that's impressive in its own way," Santos said diplomatically. "But conquest and innovation are very different skills. You've built a magnificent system for acquiring and managing technology. We've built a system for creating it." Dr. Lin pulled up another holographic display. "Look at your quantum computer systems, for example. They're built using at least 12 different technological approaches from different species. Each piece works, but they don't work well together. It's like building a car with parts from 12 different manufacturers who never talk to each other." "Our approach was different," Rodriguez explained. "We had to understand quantum mechanics completely before we could build quantum computers. So our systems are built on consistent principles from the ground up. They're simpler, but they're more efficient." The Emperor felt the foundations of his worldview cracking. "But we rule the galaxy. We have the largest fleet, the most planets, the most subjects." "You do," Thompson agreed. "And that's quite an achievement. But size isn't the same thing as advancement. You've built the largest collection of technology in the galaxy. We've built the most advanced understanding of science in the galaxy. Those are different accomplishments." Santos stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the vast city floating in space. "Your Majesty, may I tell you what I think happened here?" "Please." 3,000 years ago, the Zephyrians developed faster-than-light travel and began exploring the galaxy. You found other species and conquered them, taking their technologies and adding them to your own. This made you more powerful, so you conquered more species and took more technology. It was a very successful strategy. Santos turned back to face the Emperor. "But somewhere along the way, you stopped developing new technology yourself. Why? Invent something when you could just conquer someone who had already invented it. It was more efficient, more practical." "The problem is," Dr. Lin continued, "innovation requires a different kind of thinking than conquest. Innovation means asking, what if we did this completely differently? Conquest means asking, who has what we want? After 3,000 years of conquest, your empire forgot how to innovate." "Meanwhile," Rodriguez said, "humanity spent the same 3,000 years alone in space, forced to innovate or die. We never had the option of taking someone else's technology. We had to create everything ourselves. It made us very good at understanding fundamental principles." Dr. Okafor smiled gently. "Think of it this way. You've become the greatest collectors in the galaxy. We've become the greatest inventors. Both are valuable skills, but they produce different results." Emperor Zixthul sat in silence for a long time, processing what he had learned. His empire was vast and powerful, but it was also stagnant. The Zephyrians had become so good at conquest that they had forgotten how to create. "What happens now?" he asked finally. "That depends on what you want to happen," Santos replied. "We didn't come here to conquer anyone or to prove our superiority. We're explorers. We want to learn about the galaxy and share what we've discovered." "You would share your knowledge freely?" "Of course. That's what scientists do. Knowledge grows when it's shared." The Emperor looked at these strange beings who had accidentally wandered into his empire and casually demonstrated that his greatest achievements were obsolete. They offered their advanced knowledge freely, without demanding anything in return. It was completely unlike anything in his experience. "I need time to think," he said finally. "Of course, Your Majesty," Santos said. "Take all the time you need. We're not going anywhere." As the humans left his chambers, Emperor Zixthul faced the most difficult decision of his 3,000-year reign. He could try to maintain the old order through force, insisting that the Zephyrian way was still supreme, or he could admit that the galaxy had changed and the Empire would have to change with it. The choice would determine not just the future of the Zephyrian Empire, but the future of the entire galaxy. For 3 days, Emperor Zixthul remained in his private chambers, seeing no one except his closest advisors. Throughout the Zephyrian Empire, rumors spread like wildfire. The humans had somehow impressed the Emperor. Their technology was more advanced than anyone had expected. Some whispered that the newcomers might even be superior to the Zephyrians themselves. On distant worlds, subject species began asking questions they had never dared ask before. If the mighty Zephyrians could be surpassed by a small, unknown species, what did that mean for the Empire? What did it mean for the established order that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years? Supreme Coordinator Velthar found himself fielding increasingly difficult communications from system governors and military commanders. Some demanded that the humans be destroyed immediately, before they could spread their dangerous ideas. Others wanted to know if they could make direct contact with these remarkable newcomers. Meanwhile, the humans continued their stay on Zephyria Prime, apparently unaware of the crisis they had caused. They spent their time exploring the city, meeting different alien species and offering helpful suggestions wherever they went. Dr. Lin Wei had improved the efficiency of the city's transportation system by 20%, simply by optimizing the traffic flow algorithms. Rodriguez had shown the power plant operators how to reduce energy waste by redesigning their distribution networks. Dr. Okafor had revolutionized their food production systems, making them more nutritious and efficient. Most remarkably, they did all of this freely without being asked and without expecting anything in return. They seemed genuinely excited to help and to learn from the aliens they met. On the 4th day, Emperor Zixthul finally emerged from his chambers. He called for an immediate session of the Imperial Council, the governing body that included representatives from all major species in the Empire. The council chamber was vast, designed to accommodate beings of wildly different shapes and sizes. Representatives floated in energy fields, sat in specialized chairs, or simply hovered in midair, depending on their biological needs. All of them looked nervous. "Honored representatives," the Emperor began, "we face a situation unlike any in our history. The humans represent a fundamental challenge to our understanding of galactic civilization." A representative from the militant Corbin species spoke first. "Your Majesty, if these humans are a threat, they should be eliminated immediately. Our fleet can destroy their home system within days." "And what would that accomplish?" asked the representative from the philosophical Zilari. "Their knowledge would be lost forever." "Their knowledge is dangerous," the Corbin replied. "It undermines our authority." Emperor Zixthul raised a hand for silence. "The question is not whether we can destroy the humans. The question is what we should do about the knowledge they possess." He gestured, and holographic displays filled the chamber, showing the improvements the humans had made to Zephyrian technology. Energy systems that were 40% more efficient, computer networks that processed information twice as fast, medical systems that worked without causing pain. "In 4 days, the Emperor continued, these 5 humans have improved our technology, more than our entire Central Design Authority has in the past century. They have done so freely, without coercion, and without requesting anything in return." "It's clearly a trick," declared the representative from the suspicious Threx species. "They're weakening our defenses before launching an attack." "With what?" Velthar interjected. "Their entire military consists of 12 small ships. Their population is less than some of our individual planets. If they wanted to attack us, they would need a very different strategy." The debate continued for hours. Some representatives wanted to capture the humans and force them to reveal all their secrets. Others suggested conquering their home system and enslaving their species. A few proposed simply ignoring them and hoping they would go away. Finally, the Emperor called for silence. "There is another possibility," he said quietly. "We could ask for their help." The chamber erupted in shocked protests. The idea that the mighty Zephyrian Empire would ask anyone for help was almost incomprehensible. "Hear me out," the Emperor continued. "For 3,000 years we have grown by conquest. We have taken the technology of other species and added it to our own. But we have also become dependent on that strategy. We have forgotten how to innovate." He stood and walked to the center of the chamber. "The humans offer something we have never encountered before: genuine advancement. Not just new technology, but new understanding. They could teach us to innovate again." "And what would they want in return?" asked the Zalari representative. "Knowledge," the Emperor replied. "They want to explore the galaxy and learn about the species that inhabit it. They want to understand how different civilizations have developed and what solutions they have found to common problems. That's all? That's all. They are not conquerors, they are explorers." The debate resumed, but with a different tone. Gradually, the representatives began to see the possibilities. The humans offered not just better technology, but a completely different approach to advancement. Instead of conquest and absorption, they proposed cooperation and innovation. The next day, Ambassador Michael Santos received an invitation to address the Imperial Council. He stood before the assembled representatives of 847 different species and smiled politely. "Honored representatives," he began, "I understand there has been some concern about humanity's presence in your territory. I want to assure you that we have no hostile intentions. We're simply explorers who got lost and ended up somewhere wonderful." "You call our empire wonderful?" asked the Corbin representative suspiciously. "Absolutely. You've built something amazing here. 847 different species all living and working together. That's incredible. On Earth, we sometimes have trouble getting people from the same city to cooperate." Santos pulled out a holographic projector and displayed an image of Earth. "This is our home. One planet, 3 continents of people, all basically the same species. We've spent most of our history fighting each other over resources and territory. Only in the last few centuries have we learned to work together effectively." "And now you want to teach us?" the Threx representative asked. "Not teach," Santos corrected. "Share. You've solved problems we never even knew existed. How do you manage trade between species with completely different economic systems? How do you create laws that work for beings with radically different biologies? How do you maintain peace between species that might be natural enemies?" He gestured to the assembled representatives. "These are incredible achievements. We'd love to learn from you. And in exchange, we share what we've learned. Our scientific methods, our technological approaches, our solutions to the problems we've faced. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as partners." Dr. Lin Wei joined Santos at the center of the chamber. "If I may," she said, "I'd like to demonstrate what we mean." She activated her tablet and connected to the chamber's main computer system. "Your communication network is very impressive, but it has some inefficiencies. Instead of just telling you how to fix them, I'd like to show you why they occur and how our solutions work." For the next hour, Dr. Lin explained the fundamental principles behind human communication technology. She didn't just show them how to build better systems. She taught them how to understand the underlying science. She showed them how to analyze problems, design solutions, and test improvements. "The goal isn't just to give you our technology," she explained. "It's to help you develop your own innovations. Once you understand the principles, you can create solutions we never thought of." Rodriguez stepped forward next. "Same thing with energy systems. We can show you how to build more efficient power plants, but more importantly, we can teach you how to analyze energy flow and identify inefficiencies. Then you can improve any system, not just the ones we've already worked on." Dr. Okafor presented medical advances, and Thompson explained security improvements. In each case, they emphasized understanding principles rather than copying designs. When the presentations were finished, the chamber was quiet. Finally, the Zalari representative spoke. "You offer to teach us to think like you think. We offer to share our thinking methods," Santos clarified. "Your minds work differently than ours. You might discover solutions we could never imagine." Emperor Zixthal stood up. "The humans have made their proposal clear. They offer partnership, not domination. Knowledge, not conquest. Innovation, not absorption. He looked around the chamber at the representatives of nearly 1,000 different worlds. For 3,000 years we have grown through conquest. Perhaps it is time to try growing through cooperation. The vote was closer than expected, but it passed. The Galactic Cooperative Accord was signed 3 days later, establishing humanity not as subject number 848, but as the Zephyrian Empire's first true partners. The signing ceremony was held in the Imperial Palace, with representatives from across the galaxy in attendance. Captain Sarah Chen stood beside Emperor Zixthul as they activated the agreement that would reshape galactic civilization. "This is a remarkable day," the Emperor said. "For the first time in our history, we add a species to our empire not through conquest, but through invitation." "Actually," Sarah said politely, "we're not joining your empire. We're forming a partnership between equals. The cooperative accord creates a new kind of relationship." The Emperor paused, then smiled in what might have been the first genuine expression of humor in Zephyrian history. "Of course. I am still learning your ways." As part of the agreement, the humans received detailed star charts covering the entire galaxy, along with information about thousands of unexplored systems. In exchange, they established research stations throughout Zephyrian space, where human and alien scientists could work together. Dr. Lin was assigned to work with the Central Design Authority, teaching them human innovation methods. Rodriguez began training Zephyrian engineers in efficiency analysis. Dr. Okafor started a medical exchange program that would revolutionize healthcare across the galaxy. Thompson, somewhat to his surprise, became the head of Galactic Security Consulting, helping to identify and fix vulnerabilities in systems across hundreds of worlds. 6 months later, Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Persistence, preparing for departure to explore the Andromeda Nebula. Behind them, the Zephyrian Empire was changing in ways no one had expected. The rigid hierarchy was giving way to collaborative research groups. Subject species were becoming contributing partners. New technologies were being developed faster than ever before, as different species learned to combine their unique perspectives with human innovation methods. Most remarkably, the Empire was growing again, not through conquest but through invitation. Species that had avoided Zephyrian space for millennia were now eager to join the new cooperative structure. "Ready for departure, Captain," Rodriguez announced from the engine room. "Take us out," Sarah ordered. "Let's see what else is out there." As the Persistence jumped to faster-than-light speed, Sarah reflected on their accidental encounter with the Zephyrian Empire. They had come looking for new scientific discoveries and had instead discovered something even more valuable: that cooperation could achieve what conquest never could. Behind them, the galaxy was learning the same lesson. The Age of Empires was ending and the Age of Cooperation was just beginning. And it had all started because a small research ship got lost and its crew offered coffee to some very surprised aliens.